WordPress is a great platform to create your website and optimize it for SEO. It has a vast amount of themes and plugins that allow you to manipulate and customize your site as needed. With that level of customization comes the potential for issues as well. Though the system can be optimized for SEO, if you aren't aware of the WordPress SEO basics, you can unintentionally configure your site so it isn't reaching its full SEO potential. So let's go over what you need to know to make your WordPress website SEO friendly.
And now it's time for some more DIY SEO tips with Jennifer Rogina.
First, let's talk about the recommended SEO WordPress plugin. Before we dig into the WordPress SEO aspects that you'll want to be aware of, let's talk about Yoast SEO. Yoast SEO is a WordPress plugin. There are several SEO plugins available and a few that aren't too bad, but Yoast SEO is the one that I go with because it has all the features that you need in the free option. There are additional enhancements in the premium version, but they aren't necessary. And when you're using Yoast SEO, you don't need to run multiple plugins to optimize for SEO. Many of the SEO improvements that we're going to discuss are easier to implement with Yoast SEO. So first is check search engine visibility. First, you want to confirm that you don't have your website flagged to be hidden in search engines. In WordPress, just go to Settings and then Reading and then Search Engine Visibility. Make sure the checkbox next to discourage search engines from indexing this site is not checked. If you had to uncheck it, remember to click Save Changes at the bottom. Next is optimize permalink structure. So you want your website URLs to be human readable and concise. You don't want them to include any codes or IDs. If your URLs aren't already human readable, you can change this under the permalink settings. In WordPress, go to Settings and Permalink. I like to use the post name setting. You can choose a setting that makes sense for your website and then click Save Changes. Next is create an XML sitemap. You'll want to include an XML sitemap on your website to make it easier for search engines to index your website content. If you're using the Yoast SEO plugin, this is as easy as clicking a toggle button. To do this, you'll just go to SEO and then General, and then click the Features tab at the top. Make sure XML Sitemaps is set to On. Next, you'll want to optimize your content. Each post and page you create should be keyword focused and optimized for SEO. There are a handful of on-page optimizations that you'll want to add to each article. If you use the Yoast SEO plugin, they make it super simple to identify and implement these optimizations. Make sure that you enter in your target keyword into the Yoast SEO section of the page, and then that way the recommendations update. Now, you don't have to go through and follow every single recommendation, but they do provide a nice list to start with. The most important optimizations you want to make to your content is to add your keyword to the title tag, create a meta description and add your keyword to it, and include a keyword in the H1 tag and first paragraph of your article. When optimizing your content for SEO, remember to think of the reader. Creating a high-quality article is more important than checking off all the boxes in SEO best practices. If optimizing for perfect SEO makes the article less useful to the reader, then don't do it. Next, improve page speed. Improving the load times on your website improves both SEO and the user experience. You can run scans through Google PageSpeed Insights and GTmetrix to get a list of recommended improvements. Both tools will provide more information for each item and explain how to implement improvements. GTmetrix actually has an entire guide to optimize WordPress sites as well. Next is to make sure your site is mobile friendly. You'll want to use a theme that's responsive so your website is mobile friendly. No matter what device people are on, a computer, tablet, phone, you want to be sure that they're able to navigate and interact with your website. If you aren't sure which themes are responsive and not sure what would be a good fit, I do have a list of recommended themes, and I will add that link to the full article. So just click the show notes to view the full article, and you can see that list there. And then lastly, you'll want to make sure Google Analytics, Google Search Console, and Bing Webmaster Tools have been configured on your website. These tools are all free, and they provide data that you can leverage to improve SEO. Google Analytics tracks website visits, so you can understand where site visitors come from and what they do when they're on your site. Google Search Console and Bing Webmaster Tools are both tools created directly by search engines to provide webmasters with personalized information about how their site is performing in search. This is where you'll receive messages from search engines, get notified about penalties, and view search impressions and crawl errors. So in summary, once you've tackled these items, you'll be on your way to increased search rankings. The key will be creating consistent content and creating a routine to optimize that content each time.
Thanks for listening, and if you enjoyed this, please subscribe. This episode was brought to you by ClearPath Online, a DIY SEO tool for your website.